Welcome, Seeker.
There are moments in history when forbidden knowledge slips through the cracks of time, whispering to us like a secret carried on the wind. Knowledge that does not belong to temples of stone or to priests on gilded thrones, but to the seeker who dares to look within. Such knowledge is Gnosis. But what is Gnosticism? At first glance, it might appear as a forgotten branch of early Christianity, buried under the weight of councils, dogmas, and the iron hand of empire. Yet to reduce it to history alone is to miss its essence. Gnosticism is not merely a set of teachings. It is a way of seeing reality. It is a lens through which existence itself appears like a vast and intricate dream, and the soul is cast as the dreamer striving to awaken. Imagine being told that the world you see, the world of matter, order, and authority, is not the ultimate truth, but a shadow, a prison constructed by flawed powers who mistook themselves for gods. Imagine being told that hidden within you lies a divine spark, a fragment of pure light from realms beyond this cosmos, and that your true purpose is not to serve the world, but to remember who you really are. This is the radical vision of the Gnostics. Their scriptures, long suppressed, scattered, and concealed, do not speak of blind faith, but of inner awakening. They describe secret dialogues with Christ, not as a distant savior nailed to wood, but as a revealer of mysteries who points inward, urging the disciple to discover the kingdom not in the heavens, but in the depths of the soul. It is no wonder, then, that such teachings threatened the rising powers of organized religion. For if salvation comes not through priests, rituals, or obedience, but through direct knowledge, through Gnosis, then the whole edifice of control begins to crumble. Tonight, we journey into this hidden tradition. We will uncover how Gnosticism emerged, why it was condemned, and most importantly, what it reveals about the human spirit and its forgotten origins. Along the way, we will meet ancient teachers and secret texts, the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary, the enigmatic Nag Hammadi library, each a fragment of a greater truth that has survived against all odds. But let this not be just a history lesson. For the mystery of Gnosticism is not confined to dusty manuscripts or the ruins of long-fallen temples. It is alive. It breathes wherever a seeker questions the nature of reality, wherever someone feels that nagging intuition that the world is not as it seems, that perhaps behind the veil lies something greater. So, as you listen, ask yourself, what if the world you inhabit is but a shadow? What if the voice you ignore, the quiet whisper inside your chest, has always been your true guide? This is the secret path of Gnosticism, and in the chapters ahead, we will walk that path together, peeling back the layers of illusion, tracing the hidden history, and uncovering the living wisdom that continues to call out to those who are ready to hear. And if you wish to walk further into these mysteries, subscribe, share your thoughts in the comments, and keep your curiosity alive, for curiosity is the first breath of awakening. To truly understand Gnosticism, we must step back into the first centuries of our era, to time when the Mediterranean world was a cauldron of competing ideas, religions, and philosophies. Rome had stretched its shadow across the known world, binding diverse cultures under its empire. Pagan mystery schools still thrived in secret, whispering the rites of Isis, Mithras, and Dionysus. Greek philosophy echoed in the academies, where Plato's vision of higher realities continued to stir seekers. And within the Jewish tradition, currents of mysticism, apocalyptic prophecy, and messianic hope rippled beneath the surface. It was here, in this melting pot of thought, that Gnosticism emerged like a spark, leaping from the friction of worlds colliding. It did not arise in isolation, but as a synthesis, blending Jewish mysticism, Platonic philosophy, Zoroastrian dualism, and the mysteries of the East into a daring new vision of existence. At its core was a bold assertion. The material world is not the handiwork of the highest God. Instead, it was fashioned by lesser powers, ignorant rulers called archons, and presided over by a flawed creator, often called the demiurge. This god of the world was not the ultimate source of light, but a jailer, a counterfeit, a craftsman who mistook his prison for perfection. In contrast, the true divine realm, often called the pleroma, meaning fullness, was a place of ineffable light and boundless spirit. From this eternal source emanated eons, divine principles and beings that expressed the richness of the infinite. Humanity, according to the Gnostics, carried within itself a spark of this pleroma, a shard of divine memory that longed to return home. The story is nothing less than cosmic drama. The soul's exile into matter is not an accident, but a tragic fall, a forgetting of its true origin. The purpose of life, then, is not to perfect this world or to serve its rulers, but to awaken, to remember. Salvation lies not in belief, but in knowledge, a direct inner experience of truth. This vision placed the Gnostics at odds with the emerging structures of Christianity. Where bishops sought unity through doctrine and authority, the Gnostics spoke of hidden teachings imparted by Christ to his closest disciples, teachings that bypassed the hierarchy and aimed straight at the seeker's soul. One need only read the Gospel of Thomas, discovered in the sands of Nag Hammadi, to feel the difference. There is no crucifixion, no resurrection narrative. Instead, there are sayings, riddles, and paradoxes attributed to Jesus. Words meant to stir something deep within the listener. A kingdom is within you, and it is outside you, one passage declares. It is a map not of external history, but of inward realization. This inwardness was the hallmark of Gnosticism. Unlike religions that demanded allegiance to outer authority, Gnosticism turned the seeker inward, insisting that truth was to be known, not merely believed. It was a path of radical individual awakening, which made it profoundly liberating and profoundly dangerous to institutions that thrived on obedience. Philosophically, the Gnostics stood at a crossroads. Their vision echoed Plato's teaching that the world of forms was higher than the world of shadows. Yet they went further, declaring the material cosmos not merely imperfect, but corrupted. Their cosmology resonated with the Persian struggle between light and darkness, yet they transformed it into a myth of exile and return. This is why Gnosticism feels at once familiar and utterly strange. It is not a single religion, but a pattern of thought, a spiritual rebellion that keeps resurfacing across time whenever the soul longs for direct encounter with the divine. But as luminous as their teachings were, the Gnostics lived under constant threat. Their texts were burned, their communities branded heretical, their wisdom forced into hiding. The great library of Nag Hammadi, buried in jars in the Egyptian desert, was a desperate act of preservation. A silent hope that someday, when the world was ready, the secrets could be uncovered again. And so they were. In 1945, a farmer unearthed those manuscripts, and once again, the forgotten voices of the Gnostics began to speak. Their message, though centuries old, still resonates with unsettling clarity. The world is not what it seems, and the truth of who you are is far greater than what you have been told. If we strip away the layers of myth and symbol, what exactly is Gnosticism? At its heart lies a single word, gnosis. Unlike ordinary knowledge, this is not information to be memorized, nor doctrine to be accepted. Gnosis is an awakening, a flash of recognition in which the soul remembers what it truly is. It is knowing, not with the mind, but with the essence of being. To the Gnostics, humanity lives under a spell of forgetfulness. The material world, dazzling yet deceptive, lulls us into sleep. We chase possessions, power, and pleasures, mistaking them for reality, while the deeper truth of our divine origin remains hidden. The Gnostic path was nothing less than breaking this spell, shattering the illusion of the false world to reclaim the light within. But this awakening was not easy. The cosmos, in Gnostic vision, was governed by archons, cosmic wardens that bound the soul in ignorance. These were not merely external beings, but also inner forces: fear, desire, pride, and doubt. The archons controlled not just the stars and planets, but also the very currents of human thought. To overcome them was to transcend not only the world outside, but the limitations within. The demiurge, the craftsman of the material cosmos, was their chief. Often equated with the God of the Old Testament, he was not seen as purely evil, but as blind, mistakenly believing himself to be the highest power. His reign was the reign of imitation, of laws and systems that mimicked divine order but concealed divine truth. And yet, the Gnostics did not despair, for within every human being lay the divine spark, a fragment of the true God, hidden like a jewel in clay. No archon could extinguish it. No prison could destroy it. The role of the teacher, the savior, the revealer, was to remind the soul of its hidden treasure. This is why the Gnostic image of Christ differs so dramatically from Orthodox Christianity. In their texts, Jesus is not primarily the suffering Redeemer who dies for the sins of the world, but the luminous revealer who whispers forgotten truths. He comes not to demand belief, but to awaken gnosis. He speaks in riddles and paradoxes, in sayings that bypass the mind and strike directly at the heart of the soul. For the Gnostics, salvation was not collective nor automatic. It was not granted by external ritual alone. It was deeply individual, an inward journey of remembering, stripping away the illusions of the world and piercing through layers of falsehood until the spark could reunite with the source. This journey was described as an ascent. The soul, upon awakening, would rise through the cosmic spheres, confronting the archons at each level. Only through knowledge, through recognition of its own divine essence, could it pass freely, slipping through the grasp of the rulers until it reached the realm of pure light. Notice the striking difference here. In many religions, salvation is given by grace, by obedience, by submission to authority. In Gnosticism, salvation is discovered, found through direct experience. It is liberation not by decree, but by realization. And perhaps this is why Gnosticism was so threatening to institutions. For if each individual carries within themselves the path to liberation, what need is there for earthly mediators, rigid dogma, or controlling hierarchies? A person who has awakened gnosis cannot be ruled in the same way as one who remains asleep. This was the radical core of Gnostic thought: freedom through knowledge, liberation through awakening, truth through remembrance. It is a message that still resonates today in a world where distraction, manipulation, and illusion dominate our lives. But there is still more to uncover. In the next part, we will dive deeper into the myths, the symbols, and the paradoxes of Gnosticism, the stories that hide beneath the stories, the wisdom that unsettles even as it enlightens. And before we continue, I invite you to reflect. What if the world you see each day is not the whole of reality? What if the life you live is but a shadow of something greater within you? If these questions stir something inside, stay with me. Subscribe, comment, and share your own reflections, because this journey is one we awaken to together. The surface of Gnosticism is compelling enough, but its true essence lies beneath layers of story and symbol, myths designed not to be believed literally, but to awaken recognition in those who hear them. One of the most striking is the story of Sophia, the embodiment of divine wisdom. In Gnostic myth, Sophia, yearning to know the ineffable source directly, acts without her divine counterpart. In her striving, she falls into error, and from this fracture is born the demiurge, the blind craftsman who shapes the material world. This is not merely a cosmic drama. It is a mirror of the human condition. For just as Sophia fell into separation, so too do our souls, forgetting their origin. And just as she seeks restoration, we too are called to remember. Gnostic myth is not history. It is a map of the inner world. Sophia's story also unveils a paradox, that ignorance gives rise to the cosmos, but wisdom hides within it. The world is flawed, yes, but it is also the stage upon which awakening unfolds. The prison, in a strange way, contains the key. Another mystery unfolds in the Gnostic vision of Christ. Here, he is less a figure of flesh and more a cosmic presence, sometimes described as pure light, sometimes as a guide appearing in visions. In texts like the Gospel of Thomas, he says, "Split a piece of wood, and I am there. Lift the stone, and you will find me." This is not the Christ of creed, but the Christ of revelation, the eternal voice reminding the soul of its forgotten home. He does not ask for worship, but for awakening. He does not promise safety, but transformation. Such teachings invert the usual religious paradigm. Instead of climbing toward God through obedience, the Gnostic realizes that the divine spark already burns within. Instead of waiting for salvation at the end of time, the Gnostic sees that awakening happens now, in this very moment, if one dares to pierce the veil. And here lies another paradox. The world is both illusion and revelation. To those asleep, it is a prison of matter. To those awake, it is a coded message, each moment whispering of the source beyond. The difference lies not in the world itself, but in the eyes that see it. It is also here that Gnosticism collides with other traditions. We see echoes of it in Hermetic writings, as above, so below. We see it in Eastern philosophy, where the self awakens from the dream of Maya. Even modern psychology, in its talk of shadow, projection, and individuation, seems to echo Gnostic insights, though clothed in new language. But such truths were dangerous. To declare the demiurge blind was to challenge the authority of priests and kings. To claim that salvation comes through direct experience was to undermine centuries of hierarchy. To whisper that each soul carries divinity was to shake the foundations of empire. And so, the Gnostics were branded heretics. Their texts burned, their communities scattered. Yet, like sparks hidden in ash, their wisdom survived, waiting for seekers who could recognize its light. When we read the Nag Hammadi texts today, we encounter not dusty fragments of a dead faith, but living fire. They are not just ancient doctrines, but mirrors, forcing us to ask, who are we truly? From where have we come? To where are we returning? In their riddles and visions, the Gnostics invite us into a journey of paradox, the prison that hides the key, the fall that becomes the path of ascent, the blindness of the demiurge that reveals the hidden wisdom of Sophia. To embrace Gnosticism is to embrace mystery, to live in questions that destabilize yet illuminate. And so, I turn the question to you. What if the world around you, the routines, the systems, even the very laws of reality, is not the final truth, but a mask? And what if the very thing you seek has been with you all along, quietly glowing within? If this resonates, stay with me. Subscribe, comment, and share your own thoughts. For this is not just knowledge to be studied, but a mystery to be lived, and together we can explore its depths. It is one thing to contemplate myths of Sophia and the demiurge, and another to live as if they are speaking directly to you. The Gnostics never meant their wisdom to be locked in parchment. They intended it as a living practice, a lens through which existence itself could be transformed. The first step is remembering. In Gnostic thought, forgetfulness is the true sin, for it blinds us to the spark within. Remembering does not mean recalling facts. It means awakening to what has always been present. One practice is to pause in the midst of routine, close your eyes, and silently ask, what within me does not change, even as the world shifts? If you sit with this, the mind quiets, and you begin to sense that still point, the spark untouched by time. Another practice is discerning the voice of the demiurge. In the Gnostic myth, The demiurge is the false ruler, declaring, "I am the only God." In psychological terms, this is the voice of limitation, the voice that insists you are small, powerless, confined by circumstance. Begin to notice it in your own thoughts. Each time you hear that voice, remember, it is not the voice of truth, but the echo of forgetfulness. Naming it strips it of power. Meditation, for the Gnostic, was not merely a technique for calm, but a way of piercing the veil. Try this simple yet profound exercise. Visualize yourself surrounded by layers of illusion, like veils of mist. With each breath, imagine lifting one veil, drawing closer to the hidden light. Do not force an image. Allow whatever comes to arise. Sometimes it will be silence, sometimes a sudden clarity. Over time, the practice trains you to see the world not as prison walls, but as a text written in symbols, waiting to be read. There is also the practice of seeing through matter. For the Gnostic, the world was not dismissed, but decoded. Everything you encounter, a stranger's glance, the flicker of a candle, the pattern of the stars, carries meaning. Begin to treat life as a sacred manuscript. When you notice a repeated symbol, a dream that lingers, or a synchronicity that feels more than chance, pause. Ask, what is the hidden message? This way of living turns existence itself into an initiation. And then there is community. The Gnostics gathered in secret, not to follow authority, but to awaken one another. In your own life, seek spaces, physical or digital, where conversations reach beneath the surface, where the spark in you recognizes the spark in another. Even here, as you comment below or share your reflections, you are continuing that ancient practice. For Gnosis spreads not by dogma, but by resonance. Of course, obstacles will arise. The pull of the world is strong. The distractions of matter, the endless demands of systems designed to keep us asleep. The Gnostic answer is not withdrawal, but vigilance. Each day, remember that you walk in two worlds, the outer with its rules and illusions, and the inner where the flame of eternity burns. Balance them. Use the outer as a stage, but never mistake it for the source. The beauty of Gnosticism is that it does not ask for blind faith, but for experience. No priest, no text, not even this video can hand you Gnosis. It must be lived, breathed, tested in the furnace of your own soul. Start small. One moment of awareness, one act of decoding, one silence where the spark shines through. These fragments of Gnosis are like threads. Follow them, and they weave themselves into revelation. And so, I leave you with a challenge. This week, treat your life as a mystery school. Every obstacle, every encounter, every whisper of intuition, see it as part of a hidden curriculum designed to wake you. Share in the comments what you discover, for even the smallest insight may light the path for another seeker. If you have not yet subscribed, I invite you to join this journey. Together, we are not simply discussing Gnosticism. We are practicing it, reviving it, letting it breathe again in a world that needs its fire. What then is Gnosticism? It is not merely an ancient sect, not just a collection of forgotten scriptures hidden in the sands of Nag Hammadi. It is a way of seeing, a way of piercing the surface of existence to glimpse the currents beneath. The Gnostics told us that we are strangers in a foreign land, sparks of eternity caught in the web of time. And yet, within that exile lies the possibility of awakening. To walk the Gnostic path is to remember who you are, to discern the illusions that bind you, and to kindle the flame that leads you home. But the brilliance of Gnosticism is that it does not end with theory. It asks you to live differently, to look at the world not as a cold machine, but as a mirror, every reflection, every shadow, every chance encounter carrying secret meaning, to no longer accept the voice of limitation, but to recognize the hidden light whispering beneath the noise. And perhaps this is why the Gnostics were feared, persecuted, their writings buried. For a person who knows themselves cannot be enslaved. A person who sees through illusion cannot be controlled. Gnosis is freedom, not given by dogma, but born from inner sight. So as we close this journey, I ask you, what will you do with this spark? Will you let it fade into another passing idea? Or will you guard it, feed it, let it burn until it illuminates your entire life? This is not just history. This is invitation. The same fire that moved through the ancient Gnostics is alive in you. The only question is whether you will dare to see it. If these words stirred something within you, share your reflections below. Your insights may awaken another seeker wandering in darkness. And if you wish to continue traveling deeper into hidden wisdom, subscribe and walk with us through the labyrinth of the veiled. For the end of one mystery is always the beginning of another.